the box shiny.
A lot more than that.
The most important thing.
Basically, I just want to say all these people like saved the game and made it happen. So like these people are amazing. I'm Ben, the creator of Death Battle and the guy who came up with the initial idea for the game.
I'm Marco. I do illustrations for all the cards. I'm sorry, there were other illustrators. It's not just me. There's awesome.
And I'm Zach Fox. I'm your surprise guest for tonight because I was not on this panel initially. But I helped do manufacturing for the game.
And before we get started, just a quick reminder for anybody that just got here, Josh, our guardian, is kind enough to be walking around with a pad and a pen. If you put your email on there, we're going to do a drawing for a free copy of the game, and your email will be used as you guys will be like the first to know when the game is going to hit the store. So, thank you. And it's completely optional. You don't have to actually add your email.
Because unfortunately, the game, well, unfortunately, the game has sold out. So before we even got to do the panel about the game, it's all gone from the store. Which is amazing, but also kind of sucks for anybody who didn't get to try it out. So we want to make sure all you guys have the chance to try it out as soon as you can. Because I think it turned out pretty good.
Builds anticipation.
Agreed. There you go.
Those are the people. Why do you do this? Ben,
Oh, me?
all you guys.
Both of us, I suppose.
Sure.
Why not?
So the
Basically.
game kind of came about as a response, honestly, to like our merchandising. We felt like the merch that we wanted to make was never getting past legal because obviously the show deals a lot with other people's IP, and no matter what kind of cool T-shirt idea we had, whether it was like silhouettes of Goku or repurposing the Marvel logo, it just never got past legal. And so we were like, okay, well, what can we do that's merchandisable but also really
More skeletal remains.
captures why the audience loves Death Battle, which is we kind of debate a question. And it was like, okay, we see people even after a fight's finished and we've determined who the winner is, still debating in the comments, and how can we take that energy and turn it into something that they can, do themselves at home without necessarily having to watch every episode.
Yeah, and from my side of things, like I had seen, games like Magic the Gathering and stuff like that, which have a sort of dueling aspect to them, where you are in a 1v1 combat scenario essentially with the other player. And I've always thought like that's really cool. I like that kind of game. And I wonder if I could make something like that for Death Battle. Because like there's obviously games like Super Fight and whatnot, which has a similar idea to Death Battle, but it's very different from the idea of a competitive game in a way. And I didn't want to do something like that. So I was thinking about that for a long time. But I didn't think we would ever do anything with it until I think you and Chad came to me one day and was like, what about a game maybe?
And we talked about like the type of game, because we didn't want it to be like Super Fight where there wasn't really any foundation, it's all imagination. And then at the same time, we didn't really want the complexity that comes with some really high-level tabletop games. We wanted it to be more like a game you could take to a bar with you and just pull it out and play a couple rounds with friends. And still feels like really competitive, but it doesn't require a bunch of spreadsheets or anything.
Absolutely, and I think we might get into this more later on. But at the very beginning, you guys were like, it has to be just cards. Just cards, it can't be anything else. It's gotta be as like the simplest as possible. We don't know if this is gonna work. We don't know how to do this. We're just gonna try it, but just do cards, keep it simple, keep it basic. And then one day I decided to say, what about dice though? And everything changed.
What about them dice?
So it's more blankets, like
No.
blankets were flying off the
The
shelf.
blankets were not flying off the shelf, yes. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
if y'all had never heard, I think we've probably talked about it a couple times at panels or whatever, but when we were first acquired by Rooster Teeth, they have this amazing e-com department that Zach's part of, and there was a lot of different merchandise opportunities for Screw Attack as a brand, and we got t-shirts and lanyards and keychains and all that, the pint glasses. And we also got 1,500 blankets for some reason. And then we were expected to sell them in summer, and it just was like, was the biggest merchandising mistake we probably ever made as a brand, because we ended up, I think we got through about 500, and the rest we donated to Pets Alive.
Well, that's right. We just had stacks that we were like, what do we do? We
Yeah.
just donate it all.
So we gave it to the animals.
Make a fort.
And they had a nice warm blanket.
You get the thing about the Warriors were.
Yes.
Everything.
Yeah, in fact, is anybody out there wearing a Death Battle DC shirt? The new shirt that's been in the store?
Did we just release that?
We just released it this weekend. I thought I saw somebody wearing one. Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see you.
There's one.
If you want to stand up, that shirt design right there.
Model it for us.
We have been trying to get that shirt made for like 2, maybe 3 years. There you go, you got one right there. And now through the acquisition and Warner being like our parent company's parent company, they're like, yeah, we should be good to do this pair of shirt. It was like,
Hooray for loopholes.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Pardon my French.
Keep cussing, no cares.
Yeah.
we can
So-
go into that.
So, I hadn't seen this till yesterday until your big Death Battle.
Because we finished it just like 2 days
I know.
before.
I was so proud of all the team to see this thing come together so quickly, and I think the captain's doing really well. Here's a commercial for the game.
What did you do?
Broke it.
Well,
Take off the camera lens.
That'll never die.
Or cover. Not the lens itself. That'd be terrible.
Y'all running out of
We
storage.
had no audio earlier, it was a death battle.
don't look at my phone, there's nothing there.
Go, dice roll.
Oh, hey, I think I won. Real quick, just before we continue, who here has the game or has played the game yet?
Awesome.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, our friends over at Level 6 Games took them a whole weekend, so if you want to check it out after this, definitely go do that.
The booth right next to the Vicious Circle play area.
You should check out that as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is like the big beauty shot of the game. It's, as Ben was saying earlier, it's got all the weapons and arms and skills. And we have like 50 dice in the game, 100 cards, and this first print of the game comes with 20 Rooster Teeth based content cards.
Yeah, because there's like a theme across the cards where some are based on anime, some are based on comic books, some are based on cartoons. And so one of the gameplay mechanics is you could combine those to get bonus
That's
dice.
right.
And so with each of these cards, they're Rooster Teeth themed. They'll have a little Rooster Teeth logo on them. So maybe in the future we'll have more themes, who knows?
You better.
It'd be cool if it does well.
Buy those games. So you guys kind of already touched on where the concept came from. But then I kind of came on board
I hit a park.
once you guys had a couple meetings and shaped up this thing from clay or whatever.
Built it from clay.
Built it from clay.
Right
It
in
was
our
a real
kiln.
messy demo situation. Anyway, it was. But, so I, as the board game dude at the company, they came to me and were saying, how can we now balance this and, should this card be in there? Is this affecting the game too many times? And that's kind of just where I came in.
Yeah, well, because we started, you know, the idea, but we had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea if this would work. We didn't know how to make it happen, if anybody would even buy this. So you basically took on all of that work, all the hard stuff, all the tedious stuff, and made it all come together.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna show any of it, but like when Ben and Brian brought this game to us, it was a very playable game. Brian was really brought in to do a lot of the fine tuning and stuff. And originally cards had very not usable IP
Oh, yeah.
art on them originally.
Well, I spent, I don't know, maybe a good year and a half or so, just like kind of figuring out how the game should play. And so I would make mock cards.
Right.
That would eventually translate to those kinds of cards. A lot of, like the Chi Energy one, I made that, but it was like, it was clearly Goku shooting a Kamehameha. So obviously that can't be in the game when we, you know, send it to you guys, but that's what I presented to you guys either way.
That's exactly what's up here at the very top. It's a link. You may have heard of him.
Oh yeah, up there on the top.
Heroes tonight.
I'm trying to see what is
Yeah,
that?
sorry. This is a link. You get some blood cannons from Astro Boy.
Astro Boy, yeah.
And the Sun clones.
Which is Naruto.
Naruto. Yeah, so then those.
I mean, no, it's not Naruto. It's totally just a ninja thing. That
Just one clown, you know, ninja person.
So as we were developing this, the game was kind of, you know, shaping up. We'd have meetings, we'd have meetings with Matt and Bernie and all those guys to actually greenlight the game, even though we had been working on it for a year. Supposed to be doing it first.
Well,
So we
you know, we were just still trying to figure out what the idea was going to be. Like initially, it was a game about numbers. I spent a good maybe like 6 months or so trying to build the game out of you put the cards together. It was a very similar process of you know, playing weapons, armors, and skills together, but it was building a number, and then for defense, you would build a negative number, and then those would compare to each other.
It's like a combo system in
Yeah.
there too. We were trying to do so. It was like you do one
It
attack.
got really weirdly complicated for no real reason, is what it felt like to me. So that's why I eventually switched over to the dice idea, because it just felt way more satisfying than putting all these cards out and then everybody taking 5 minutes to try to calculate all these numbers, because nobody likes math. I mean, some people do, but nobody really does. Except for that guy.
Aren't you a researcher?
But we figured, you know, dice would be a lot more fun and satisfying, just rolling a big thing of, as Chad likes to say, a shitload of dice at the very end, just to have that feeling of accomplishing something. And it feels really good.
Yeah,
I like it.
I've always found card games, I'm not much of a Magic player, because I miss that tactile feeling like a game like this has dice in it. It just gives this feeling of battling already, when you're chucking some dice at something. I think it really pulls everything together nicely for Death Battle.
Yeah, we actually have the sample of the dice. We had a buddy laser up some just blank, solid color dice. They were ugly. The only hit symbol was the lightning bolt from the ScrewTech logo.
Oh yeah, originally it was going to be the ScrewTech logo on all the dice. Even after the ScrewTech name went under, we were going to keep that because it has a nice nod to it, right? And then, I can't remember who brought it up, but somebody mentioned, what about colorblind people?
Yeah, one of our the artists on the Ruby team, engine locking, everything else that they made. He was like, yeah, this is good, but what color is this one? So we're like, crap, we have to, and that actually impacted what Zach had to do. He had to go to the factory and say, hey, how much is it going to cost to get these molds made? Or we actually went with an iron on, right, Zach?
Yeah, it's more like a heat transfer process on these, but initially we wanted to go with etched in dice, which are obviously, if you're going to do dice, that's probably the way to go. But for something like this, to keep costs down, we did go with the heat transfer. There's a huge difference between doing a dice with one symbol across all these 50 different dice we're going to do, and doing 6 different symbols across all these dice we're going to do. So it's 6 different molds as opposed to 1 different mold.
And each die has a different number of symbols,
Yeah.
because all of them have different effects, so every die was its own project, essentially.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated process.
So, you know, we get the process together, started with Ben, I came on board, we made it a good, stable game. Now we need to make it pretty, right? So we got this is just one bit of the prettiness that comes in the box. This is where I hook up Kara again because we worked together on Achievement Hunter Heist, which I think is a beautiful game. Good job. So we moved into what Kara's realm is, and she does all her graphic design. She didn't make this slide specifically.
Look at this beautiful artwork.
So I think I actually had this on our official like reference document because I made like reference PowerPoints for some of the artists because Brian and I started talking about the visuals kind of early on, and in order to offer the illustrator's direction, I think I like dumping memes in whatever I do. But actually, all right, cool. So I went ahead and I tried to find as much art as I could from the artists. I have 3 each, but alphabetical order. On stage here we have Marco Head. He was one of the first people I tried to deliberately pull in on this project because I've known him for a couple years. He's an amazing artist. But I believe Bez is in the audience. Hey Bez, you did an amazing job. The weaponized dolphin is still one of my favorite cards.
That was one of the earliest ideas in terms of cards, and I'm so happy we got to keep it through the entire process.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like my favorite card.
Very copyright.
You know, it's from your favorite TV show with the weaponized dolphin.
Well, it's actually based
From
on,
Commandos.
a lot of these cards have origins in weapons we've shown in Death Battle. So there was a certain Death Battle called Chuck Norris vs. Sega Sandro, and Chuck Norris can talk to and weaponize dolphins in his cartoon show. So that's where that one came from. It was inspired by it.
And I think we only had one from Josh. But
He does one other card in the
Oh,
Rooster Teeth pack,
the pack.
which is actually a card. It's called Possession, which is a mechanic from Vicious Circle. It's Blitz getting attacked by the Wood Dipper. I like kind of fought for that one. Like I want to represent my boys, get them in the game. So we got that to happen. So I'm very excited about.
And then Christina had this really cool ethereal style for some of the more magical cards.
Christina,
She's right there.
You're in the audience. You can stand up, everybody.
Then of course we've got Marco here. If you want to talk about how you helped influence the style across the board.
Well,
Does he flex to shoot those?
Astro Boy Flexus, yes. So, I mean, originally I just started with the Gundam one was the first one I did, Gundam / Transformers style. It's just a mech suit. But it was the first one I did, and it kind of set up the style. And then I just went back and forth with legal over and over and over again to make sure it didn't look too similar to the original. But yeah, so that's kind of how I laid out the style of it, and then also they wanted to keep it black and white, but I wanted to make sure we had the gradients in there so you could get that manga style whenever you're doing like an anime card, or you can do more like comic book gradients on the superhero cards.
Yeah, we tried to do that across all 5 genres in the game, just to have like some sort of a visual language that says, oh, this is a movie reference we have, like the movie Static.
We also helped kind of initially, we developed a visual style for each of these tropes because we had film, anime, cartoon, comic, and video games. And so we tried finding influential styles from across those medias and hone in. Like I think we tried to limit cartoons to more of a rounded look. Anime clearly would have the anime eyes. Film had a cool film grain. Rahul did really great job with like more realistic film renderings. We kind of tried assigning artists on what we thought would fit best with their own individual styles. And then is Ricardo next?
Yes. Also, I like to joke that our art director was actually Lane from our legal team.
Yes.
She is able to look at everything. Like this is Mjolnir. The first pass I got of it was a little bit like a thing from a movie you might have seen recently.
Okay.
And then Ricardo did a lot of the cool kind of cartoony and video games ones. I loved how like angular his style was. And then Raimu did a lot of the anime for reasons.
You can tell just by looking at it.
And then comes my baby, the graphic design section. And And we kind of started by, like, as you see in the earlier slides, they had a very clear vision of what they wanted, and I was just here to kind of pretty it up. And so I binged a lot of the show to try to pick apart how we might want to bridge the show with the game and then the artists' individual styles. It was kind of fun to mash those three together and try to play and get it in a cohesive kind of look and feel. Brian actually had me start, I think, on the icons first, but I also, I think, tried to develop, because the skill cards, the armor cards, and the weapon cards all had to kind of look very, or not very different, but you needed to know they were unique. And so the skill cards ended up utilizing the backgrounds from the show at the end credits. All the card backs use that background, it's just different cropped pieces of it. And that background is actually utilized in different ways across all of the cards. So look and feel, haha, and then the first draft actually looked pretty close to the final design. It was really fortunate that they just kind of looked at it and went, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. But so take that one thing away and then roll with it. One of the first things we did was develop the icons, so I just threw as much as I could at them, and then they kind of took their pick, which worked out. Some of the final ones are still in there. Actually, the anime eye, I think, was supposedly the final at first, and then they wanted a jelly donut. Yes! We ended up making it in, so that's the one on the right. Other icons that we ended up making were the dice that you see on all the cards and the actual dice. The concept art actually came from Brian Riley up on that board. Just,
look at that beautiful concept art.
I loved the rendering. And then so I took his design and kind of tweaked with it a little bit, and that ended up with the dice you see.
I appreciate that, so you can credit it.
Yeah.
The concept art was literally Sharpie mark, not Sharpie, dry erase marker on a dry erase table from a meeting that we had.
And I get like a text and go, I think I can work with this. And all the dice actually, I did 5 different variations of each of them because the die get actually repeated on the cards. And I wanted to make it feel a little more organic because it's very smashy, splotchy, splotchy. And I wanted to make sure that if you copied and pasted.
Those are technical terms.
It's a technical design term I learned in school. I went to school, I got this, you guys. And when you repeat the same graphic over and over, it looks very mechanical and computerized. So I wanted to make sure I had this kind of like icon generator that I could just drag and drop and make sure it looked unique-ish. And then you saw this earlier. Here's what the die ended up looking like delicious candy that I want to eat, actually.
Do not eat.
That's like the one problem with the game, is that the dice look like candy.
Yeah.
So make candy dice.
I want to eat them, but I know I shouldn't.
So there may be 1 or 2 missing from the demo table, and I had nothing to do with it.
No, that was a merch idea.
Yeah. Keep that in mind. So then for the card backs, they really just pulled from the background. We did different splotches, pulled from the actual Death Battle logo background. We had a couple of failed versions up at the top. It's always fun to play with cool ideas, but not all of them make it, just like you saw on the icon slide for the tropes.
Well, like, gameplay actually led some of this design. We wanted the armors, which are essentially your health, to be on the table, never in your hand. So we wanted to make it kind of awkward for you to hold like cards like this, or just keep them on the table. You have the other cards in your hand, like you would normally hold a hand of cards.
Yeah. And the weapons are a little bit darker, skills are a little bit lighter, and armor, of course, is sideways, so you know they're all different. And then one of my favorite things to do is actually the instruction booklet. Each of the sections, because there's a kind of a phase process to the game, I wanted each of the sections to kind of look different as you were transitioning. So like you go from this colorful top to suddenly it's a different kind of background page. I also really wanted to incorporate the artist's work into the backgrounds and like keep it colorful, and we're not colorful, it's black and white. But keep it visually interesting because the artist did such great work on this. Speaking of the artists, I kind of played the artist wrangler every evening. I would see which assets were finished, and I believe I was the Grim Reaper of card art souls. And every night I would post a spooky picture and be like, I demand, and I would name like the finished assets. I demand the retro briefs from you, Margot.
Combat skirt.
Let me put it in the card layout. And, you know, he, okay, send it to me. And then we have the box. So, kind of going along the lines of wanting to highlight the artists without interrupting the show's look and feel too much. Someone actually thought it was funny that I said highlight the artist, and then I made it a dark black, dark gray line art. But when you hold it up to the light, the box is really shiny, so you end up looking at the art going, whoa, it's gorgeous. Thank you. And yeah, because I actually saw someone's business card who did this like UV kind of, what is it, overprint, kind of gloss, spot gloss, and I went, that would make a cool thing. And honestly, when I go to game stores, there's so much color and so many like different textures competing for your attention. Like, what if the box was just black and then something on it held your attention? So, fun fact, when laying out boxes, you don't just print side by side by side, you kind of lay it out on this cross structure and they fold it across. And it's very particular the way you map the box. And they all have to match and lay on top of each other. Like the line art on the top had to perfectly match the gloss layer, or else you can't really see it, this, where the line art is about a centimeter away from the gloss, and it's really tricky looking.
Yeah, it looks like those old